Hi all. Good morning. This is Kirt Cathey with 5 Hacking Tips. Thank you for joining me today. It's a different subject, a lot different than what I covered last time. Last time was more about personal security. This time we're going to get back into hacking. Today we're going to cover basically web hacking with BurpSuite, or the BurpSuite Pro is what I use. There's also BurpSuite Community Edition, which a lot of people use, and it comes standard with the full Kali packages install. What I'm introducing you today is all available within the BurpSuite Community Edition, and you're going to find that even a lot of pro hackers don't even use BurpSuite Pro because they're really good with these proxies. They're really good with analyzing the responses from certain requests, and they get along just fine with Community Edition. If you're going to sit for your OSCP and try and get that lab test behind you, I don't think offensive security allows you to use BurpSuite Pro. They require, when you use BurpSuite Pro, you've got to limit the features that you use to basically what's available in the Community Edition, and that's for all reasonable purposes. That's what I'm going to introduce today. Number one, Intruder, for brute forcing anything from directories to passwords to login names and passwords, or all kinds of things. And then the second feature would be Repeater, which is basically it just basically repeats. It's a very simple function. All it does is it grabs a request, and it basically, you can repeat that request over and over again by like manually changing a password in there, or changing a session cookie, or rehashing some kind of a session ID and putting it in there, or trying to decrypt the session cookie to see exactly what it represents. So let's get started. The thing about the difference between the community edition and the pro edition for BurpSuite, and here we've got the website, it's at portswigger.net, is within the community edition, there are certain things like related to scanning that may not be as featureful. And then there are other things, for example, there's like the compare, the logger, the extender, and some other advanced tabs that are in there. I think the decoder is available in Community Edition as well. But there are many other things. And is Pro worth it? Well, I think as of this recording, it's $399 US. I think it is. I renew every year. I've had it for 3.5, 4 years now. And it's come in, the advanced features have come in handy. And then in the very beginning, let me show it to you here, is in the very beginning, let me maximize this so it's easier to see. Hope you have a bigger screen because that's showing up really small here. But anyways, you can see when you go into the dashboard, there's a scan option in there, and I think that's something that's available in Pro. I hardly ever use that unless I really think I've got some time before I start and I've got the permission to go ahead and scan it within a certain time frame. I'll go ahead and do that. I know some people that actually just get on bug bounties and go to websites, and this is the first thing they do. I don't recommend that. Just because of the load that you could actually cause some problems by just arbitrarily scanning systems that are otherwise in production. The other thing is that I wanted to touch on while I find my mouse here. Bear with me. The other thing I wanted to touch on is that we have a lot of times when you're particularly in either an engagement scenario or in a bug bounty scenario or CTF scenario, whatever it might be, even on Hack the Box in a lab scenario, you want to establish your target. So that's the first thing I'm going to introduce here. Here is basically you've got to set up your target, and here, and when you click on target and you go underneath that, it says sitemap, and then it says scope. That's the first thing you want to set. You want to set scope. You don't want to just go scanning a whole domain and all the subdomains. So in here, this is a hack the box instance that I've set up, and it's already running, and I'm VPN'd in and everything. We're ready to go. And then this is for the IP address here, 10.129.116.119 up here. This is actually this is what the domain that it resolves to. So I put that in as well as the target instead of just the IP address. So we're set there. Once you set the target, it's going to warn you. It's going to say, hey, it's going to exclude all traffic intercepts outside of the target. Normally you'll say yes to that. So, and once you do that, it starts to crawl the target website, and it starts to set up a simple, basically a sitemap of the website. So that's interesting too, to see like what else is in there besides what you're looking at either in the browser. So this is the web page in a browser that I've popped up just by putting in the intra.redcross.htb for hack the box domain address. So this pops up. It's a login screen. But we don't want to do it here because there's this concept of proxies. So in order to hack websites, you can get lucky just by blowing something at it and doing a denial of service on an Apache server or on an IIS server. But rather than doing that and doing it a little more structured, and basically what everybody does when they hack it is you've got to set up a proxy. You've got to be able to catch the responses back from the web server to your request before it hits the browser so that you can pull it up in either a text environment or in a tool to analyze it. And that's what BurpSuite is about. It's that tool specifically for hacking web apps. There's very few things that BurpSuite can't do other than maybe like in the tools area. You get a lot more out of SQL map with SQL injection. I was talking about the sitemap that's listed here. You may not get everything, that you need out of here, and you might get actually a little more, a few more results with something like Dirbuster, and brute forcing it that way by putting in a word list. So moving on. So that's what happens here. In the Pro Edition, just one thing additionally that I don't think you have in the Community Edition, if you highlight this and you go down to Engagement Tools, and then within Engagement Tools, you say Discover Content, what that will do is it'll go in and do a similar thing as Dirbuster, but would probably take a little more time. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, let's go ahead and discover content. And I'm going to start, the session running there, and it's going to go through and get a little more content than what a regular sitemap would be. And it may even pull up some subdomain names that are out there. So that started. And then over here, when you go on dashboard, it shows issues. And a lot of times it's hard to put those issues into motion as a pen tester. Oddly enough, if you want to look up these issues, you go to Target, and there's a tab here, Issue Definitions, and it goes into detail with links about what each issue is. So, during the course of an engagement, you might be stumped, or you're not making the progress that you want, or in the overall survey process, take a look at these issues. And if there's anything in there that you don't understand issue-wise or don't know if you can hack or not, take advantage of, feel free to go ahead and look it up in issues and check out the links. A lot of what hacking is about is actually that. It's about trying to find, what the weak link is. And that's a big part of it. And it involves a lot of study. People think, well, he's just a natural, he can just get behind a command line and do it. And that's not what it is. Like, hackers that have made their way, even the bug bounty guys that you see make a couple $100,000 or $1 million a year, they spend a lot of time researching this thing, and they're just as much of a researcher as they are a hands-on hacker. In fact, I think the two work together. So I'm going to move along here. And let's move over to the proxy tab. Across the top, you'll see a proxy tab there. So it says intercept is off. Let's turn intercept on. And then here, I already had the Chrome browser open. But this is the nice thing about the most recent version of BurpSuite. Let me share with you what version I am running here. But if we look for the license, it's 2022.2.4. So that's the most recent version. I just updated this yesterday. So if you turn intercept on, and what that does is it basically says, okay, I'm going to intercept traffic from requests that you send. When I get a response back, I'm going to intercept that, and you can do something with it. And I'll show you exactly how it works here in a minute. So on older versions of BurpSuite, you would have to install like a separate proxy plugin or extension in your browser in order to be able to capture traffic with BurpSuite. Now, BurpSuite includes all that proxy setup and everything, and includes the Chrome browser. So if you go down here and you say open browser and you click on that, it opens the Chrome browser for BurpSuite. So I'm going to go ahead and in here and I'm going to say HTTPS and intra.redcross.htb. By the way, this machine is Red Cross. It does have an SQLI injection. You can use BurpSuite to fuzz it to find that SQLI injection, but I'm not using it for that purpose here. Red Cross is a rather hard box, so put on your SQL injection, your cross-site scripting hat on, because it's not going to be an easy challenge. But you can see here, as soon as I put in that, not only did it capture the response, but it captured my request. So I'm going to take this and go ahead and forward it and see what we come up with in terms of a website. Still hasn't come up. It sends a PHP ID session. So kind of, if I want to do some session tinkering or that kind of thing based on this, I would take that and send it to Repeater. And I'll explain later why I'm doing that. But I'm going to go ahead and forward this because I actually want to see what the website looks like at this point. And there, the website comes up and it looks like, well, lo and behold, we have a login. So I want to take a picture of what that looks like. In other words, in HTTP request format. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, hey, I want to find, let's try and log in with admin, and see if that works. So I'm going to say go. And lo and behold here, hopefully you guys can expand this quite a bit more than what I'm seeing it on my studio software here. But what we have here is basically the request that's going through. And at the very bottom here, it shows the payload. It shows that the user admin equals this, and I put in admin for the password. So I'm going to take this, and this is a perfect example of a kind of request that you would send to Intruder for some brute forcing. And then you would also maybe send it to Repeater as well to be able to just tinker around with it, because you've got a couple of things up here. You've got a PHP session ID, and you've got other things happening in here. But first and foremost, you've got this. So, what has happened here? I want to see what the reaction is from the web page. So I'm going to go ahead and forward that. And I've already, if you go over into Repeater, you can see that I've saved the request here. And then over Intruder, we've got the same request over here. And we'll come back to that in a minute. So we show the proxy. The proxy's, it's got a little red here. And I'm going to go ahead and forward that. And I want to know, kind of what the response was. So the response was wrong data. So we know that's what the response is going to be if you put in a bad login name or a password. So, okay, so let's test that, maybe try and brute force it. I've already tried to brute force this, and there's a there's a WAF or a filter setting that only lets you go up to like 25 or 30, and then basically it's all 200s after that. So you don't know whether you're getting in or not. But just to give you an idea, so where there are these, they look like paragraph marks around the fields. Up here in PHP session ID, you can see that there is a it's highlighted in light green, but and then down here, user. So it detects this. It detects the fields for you. And that's another feature of BurpSuite, also in Community Edition. It automatically detects what are the variables in that request that you can tinker with. And within Intruder, so I'm just going to say Sniper. But if you want to know more details about each of these, it's available within the program. So if you choose Sniper, you can see that it explains what they all are down here. And Sniper is basically what we use to basically to brute force against a single field. You can use other things like cluster. I think they have cluster bomb and then pitchfork, and in other words, where you can use a brute force against multiple fields and multiple variables and that kind of thing. I'm gonna stick with the simplest one, and I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna clear all these, and the one that I want to inject into is the password admin. So I'm going to say add to that. So I add basically a field to that I'm going to inject in. And this is in the positions tab. If I go over to the payloads tab, okay, so it shows that I have, enough room for one payload list. It's a simple list, but I'm just going to say load here. And then passwords, let's choose passwords long. And this is the default directory that I have it set up. So in Kali, there's user share word list folder. Inside that word list, BurpSuite, Derby, Directory Buster, Dirbuster, they all put their word lists in there. That's where you find rocku.txt list file. So remember that. That's a Kali thing, and that's the way it works. So, and I have this fuzzless thing that I think I downloaded off of GitHub. And it's passwords long. So this is the longer list of passwords. This is quite simple. So what I'm doing is basically brute forcing admin user against a list of passwords to see what we have here. So I'm going to start that attack. There are other options in here. Resource pool, they're advanced. They may not even be available in the Community Edition. I know that options is, there are various options in here. This is more of an intro course. I'm not going to dive deep into it, but I'm just going to say start attack. So I'm going to start brute forcing that, and up shows a window right away. So on this, a lot of times, web applications, they'll come back with 200 as if, it was fine, accepted, you're moving forward. And what you have to look for there is the length here. So if you have a response length or a status code that's different, then that's probably where you should look into, not all of the other ones that are the same. So as you can see, as I explained earlier, okay, so we got in 20 requests before the WAF or the filter or whatever's in place there basically said kapoop, no. So I'm just going to say, okay, I can't brute force this, but I'm still interested in it. So I'm going to cancel that and say, okay, we're not going to try it that way. So let's go over to Repeater. So, I tried admin, and let me explain what the Repeater is. The Repeater is basically, I've taken this request, and, we know what the inputs to the request are. We basically, from looking at Intruder as well, we know that PHP session ID is a variable that goes in. It's somehow generated either in the JavaScript on the client side, and then it's put in and sent out. And then user admin, and then this password admin, we know that we put that in. And that's a common, that's like one of the first tests you do in a web app is admin. But what's the other one? What's the other one you should always do? Because it's there quite often, not all the time. But let's try guest. So just to show how a repeater works, I'm going to put in guest. Another thing is when you're using Repeater and Intruder, what you may want to do is make sure that you've turned intercept off, just because it's intercepting all the traffic and you kind of don't want to see that there. You want to see what the response is over here on the right. So I put in guest, and let's see what happens here. So I'm going to send that. Wow. So that was different. Remember over here, I forgot, well, let's try it here. This is bypassing BurpSuite. This is directly. So that's our response for a bad password. It says wrong data. But what we're seeing over here in BurpSuite is checking provided credentials. It went a little further. I don't know. I suspect maybe there's some association between this PHP session ID and the password that's getting encrypted or something. I don't know. I'm not sure, but this brings in a few things. It shows exactly how it's setting things up, checking credentials. That's a different response than wrong data. So I kind of want to go back and check that out. So let's type in guest and guest. And there it says checking provided credentials. Oh, lo and behold, that is the guest account password. I'm in the web app now. It's welcome me as a guest. And that, folks, in 10 to 15 minutes is exactly how you use BurpSuite, Intruder, and Repeater. And in a nutshell, I'm going to go back to this, is basically Repeater is a very powerful tool. And especially with BurpSuite now, because you're not running out and setting up a third-party proxy or something in order to capture the traffic. It's all in the tool. And you take the requests that you've sent and you throw them over into Repeater, and you can just start tampering. You can tamper with PHP session ID, take that and try and reverse it to see, if it represents something, and analyze it. And then it shows how, the different reactions that the system gives to different things. So let's go back here. So that showed checking credentials. Let's go back and see what the response is with admin. Maybe I should have done that to be a little clearer originally, but it says wrong data right there. So, just as we saw on the web page. So that is, in a nutshell, how to use BurpSuite. Download it, use it. It's a really good tool, and you won't regret it. And in closing, thank you for all the support. Over 1,000 followers in 3 months. I can't be ever more grateful. Please do join the channel on YouTube, like it, comment. This presentation came as a result of comments. Keep it coming. I appreciate it. Have a good day.